that the soul is immortal, and why, through it being divine, it often leads to a life similar to that of a beast. Marsilio Ficino to Giovanni Nessi, distinguished by his writings and conduct. Greetings. Were there not within us divine power, and were our minds not of heavenly origin, we could in no way acknowledge the insignificancy of mortal things, and we should certainly never reason beyond or pursue anything above the physical level. No one would exert himself at all, even in the smallest matter, to resist the body, for we should be satisfied with earthly riches, and all men, or certainly the great majority, would rest content with this middle region of the universe as their natural birthplace and home. But as it is, since our condition is very different, I believe, and with no empty faith, that we are of divine origin. Yet, if we are divine, why do we often lead a life similar to that of a beast? Is it because the natural condition of this region determines that we use sense like an animal long before we use reason like men? Furthermore, far more numerous and more obvious inducements present themselves to our senses than to our minds. Lastly, the man in us is one, but the beasts are many. It is worthwhile considering that picture of us which Plato paints in the 9th book of the Republic. Thus, let us fashion an image of the soul similar to the natures once said to have been possessed by the Chimera, Scylla, Cerberus, and many others, in which, they say, a variety of forms was begotten in one body. So picture a single model of a beast of many forms, having heads facing all directions. Some, I say, are the heads of tame beasts, and some of wild, all of which it can generate from itself and interchange with each other. Above these add the form of a lion, and at the top of one a man. Let the first one described to be the largest, the second and the third smaller. Then join these three so that they coalesce and make one. Surround them with the form of a single man, so that to one who is unable to look within but only on the surface, who discerns only the covering, the man seems clearly to be one being. Thus, to him who asserts that profits this human being to act unjustly, but that it does not profit him at all to live justly, let us point out that he is asserting just this, that it profits the human being to be fed on the manifold beast and the lion, and to make them both stronger, but to allow the man to starve, and to be so weakened that because of his feebleness he is dragged in whatever direction the other two carry him off. He should not make them gentle or friendly with one another. Rather, should he allow them as separate creatures to savage one another, and their conflicts to devour them alike. Accordingly, the man who declares that just actions are profitable will advise that ought to be said and done to enable the man within a being of this kind to achieve a complete mastery. He should tend the many-headed monster like a husbandman, cherishing the tame heads, giving them water and food, but instantly cutting off the wild ones, making the lion's nature his ally in this, and in common care of all of them, he should reconcile each one with the others in mutual goodwill towards himself. And so, from every consideration, he who praises what is just speaks truth, but he who praises what is unjust lies. For in relation to pleasure, honor, and advantage, the commander of justice proclaims truth, but he who slanders justice speaks no truth, nor does he know what he condemns. Thus far, a similar division of our soul is described in Plato's Timaeus. There he divides the soul into three powers, as into parts, whose natures are reason, passion, and desire. He has appointed the power of reason to the head, queen, as it were, in the highest citadel, chiefly because the head, more than anything else, seems to exert itself in watching, and it is there that all senses are most vigorous. Next, he has set the power of passion in the region of the heart, since is in anger, boldness, and fear that this region is most agitated. Lastly, he has given the power of desire to the liver, because its natural vigor lends itself to both the digestion of food and to the growth of bodily craving. Likewise, in Phaedrus, he calls reason the charioteer, since in the order of nature it is master of the other parts. To the charioteer he links twin horses, one white and one black. As he sees this analogy, the horses are the powers of the heart and the liver, because these should submit to reason as to a charioteer. Magnanimity, which is accorded to the heart, is said to be the white horse, for it is closer to reason. But the liver's power of desire is the black horse, since it is farther away from the preeminence of reason. Then, again, reason within us is called Hercules. He destroys Antaeus. That is the monstrous image of fantasy, when he lifts Antaeus up from the earth. That is, when he removes himself from the senses of the physical images. He also subdues the lion, meaning that he curbs passion. He cuts down the hydra with its many sprouting heads. That is, he cuts off the force of desire, which, a passion, is born not into a few things, and those of great importance, but into anything whatsoever, or rather, into innumerable things, by means of an insatiable whirlpool. But while our Hercules is cutting down the hydra of the liver with his sword, heads instantly sprout again, because the fuel for new heads is still there. But when he consumes the hydra by fire, he utterly destroys the fuel, and so nothing is born from it again. In Plato's Phaedo, Socrates commands thus: do not abstain from one bodily pleasure to gratify another. Otherwise, in place of the one, many are instantly reborn. On the contrary, he enjoins us to try to abstain from pleasures for the sake of reason, for only thus is it possible, he says, to root out vices at the source. Let me now bring this letter to an end. But may I first remind you of this one thing, which clearly we should bear in mind. If the wild beasts within us are many, it is not surprising that according to Plato, souls are transmigrating from man to beasts. Certainly, we have within us, from the beginning, fuel for desire and something of animal nature. When we have heedlessly nourished these for a long time, reason is either in some way lulled to sleep, or else it is awake under a cloak of passion and desire. Wherefore, under that human skin, the man himself seems to have been transformed into beasts. Hence, Socrates says in Phaedrus, indeed, I examine myself, Phaedrus. Am I monster with more heads than Typhon, more full of fire and fury? Or am I a simpler and calmer being, sharing in some divine and favorable destiny, partaking in a quiet understanding. 1st of July, 1477.